Hello and welcome to Obsessive Audio. This is Eric, and today we're going to do a deep dive into the P565 Siren plugin from Pulsar Modular. Siren is a filter set plugin with envelope following capabilities. It's based on not one, but three very famous filters. First off, the Urei 565T Little Dipper filter set, revolutionary product for its time, which enabled you to get surgical in a way that was impossible to do before. Next up, the very famous Moog ladder filter, extreme resonance capabilities, high pass and low pass. And finally, the Altec 9068 and 9069B filters, passive filters, stepped frequency response made famous by King Tubby, all of which can be modulated by the envelope follower. You've got oversampling, you've got distortion, you've got a Mutron mode. Great stuff, highly versatile, highly creative. Now in this video, we're going to do a full breakdown of all the controls and the operation of Siren, some examples of different techniques to get different sounds. But before all that, let's just listen to some quick examples of what Siren can do. The first thing that struck me about Siren was the graphical user interface. We can stretch it out here on a giant 4K monitor, and look at that, it's filling almost the entire screen. It's a skeuomorphic design, but it's crystal clear, highly responsive. Pulsar did an amazing job on this, so kudos to that. Just a quick warning, disclaimer, always use a brick wall limiter after Siren. The resonance and the volume that it's capable of generating is extreme, and we don't want to have any problems. Let's have an overview of the GUI. We've got 4 bands here. High pass filter, we can turn them on and off by clicking on the LED. High pass, you can select the frequencies, the slope, the resonance. We've got a mid-band, which can be set to either boost or cut. It can get quite narrow with this control here, with the bandwidth control. Select the frequencies here. We can also zone in on frequency ranges to make this knob more precise. Got the same thing here, another band, and we've got a low pass filter. We can turn that on and off as well. Cutoff, slope, resonance. These two controls here have to do with the envelope follower and how they're going to affect the cutoff. So you can have 2 envelope followers down here. And for envelope 1, we can turn that on with the LED. We can have this cutoff follow the volume. And we can set the attack time, release time, the amount that this is going to swing by. And also there's a level control, which is a bit of a sensitivity / dynamic range control to zone in on which part of the audio this envelope is going to react to. So you can assign this envelope either to the high pass filter or the first of the bell bands with this selector knob right here. Similarly over here, we've got envelope 2, which you can assign to the second bell or to the low pass filter. And again, speed with the attack and release, the amount, sensitivity. You've got 3 speed modes here, increasing speed as we go up. So if you want to go really fast, you can put it up to speed 3. We've got a drive knob here, which is distortion, which can be routed either pre or post filter. An overdrive switch for a lot of extra distortion. We've got a wet-dry knob here. We can blend in the dry signal. We can also delay either the wet or dry signal. Up top here, you've got bypass, on or off. You can turn the plugin on or off. You can flip the phase, 180-degree phase shift, flip the polarity of either the dry signal or the wet signal. You can activate an external sidechain from another track in your DAW as such, and these will start to respond to the other tracks in the DAW. You can stair-step the low and high pass filters like this, King Tubby style. Boom, 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 boom. With it off, it's a smooth sweep. This corresponds to the Altec. We've got 3 oversampling modes. Click the oversampling on and off here. 3 modes: intelligent, HD, and vintage. You could just cycle through by clicking those. We've got your A, B presets here. If you get a setting that you like, you can copy A into B by clicking that. Now when we go to B, those settings will remain. We can now go back to A, switch to something different, and now A and B to enable you to compare different settings. You've got your presets right here. You click on it, and there's all kinds of different presets. Which I recommend you go through. Now, anytime you tweak a preset, you'll notice that that red dot appears on the Save button. If you like what you hear, you can click right on that, and that will save the preset. Alternatively, you can click on this, save as a name, new preset, boom, and there's the name, new preset. Finally, we have the hamburger menu. We can go about, which will show you the version you're running, the build date, license information. You can go to the website and click off, and there you go. You can call up the user guide. You can set the default size. We saw that earlier. Mu is very interesting because it changes the responses of the filter envelopes and emulates the Mutron pedal. Very cool. We're going to see that in the examples. And also you can set the delay to operate on wet or dry. And that's down here with this delay. That can operate on either the wet or the dry. Those are your controls. Let's take a quick look at the phase and frequency response of the different filters in Siren. Of course, the original 565 Little Dipper did one thing above and beyond what the other analog EQs of the time could do, and that was to get very narrow with the band boosts and the band cuts, notch filtering. This enabled you to remove very specific frequencies, hums, resonances, high-pitched noises, maybe from monitors nearby, that sort of thing. Pretty revolutionary for the time. Very cool now. Let's take a look here. You select the frequency with this knob. Fully sweepable from 20 Hz to 20 kHz, the entire audible range. And up here, you can enable the range mode for more accuracy, which gives you 3 modes, and it basically focuses the range of the control. So now it goes from 20 Hz up to 200 Hz, and that gives you a lot more accuracy if you're sweeping around looking for a particular frequency. Times 10 is the same thing, but more mid-range focus, starts at 200 Hz, goes up to 2 kHz, and times 100, of course, starts at 2 kHz and goes all the way up to 20. So very useful for precision work. Of course, the other thing you can do is click and type in a frequency, and that'll take you there as well. Now to enable the filter, we'll click on this LED here. You can see here it's giving a boost. There's 3 modes of boost and 3 modes of cut, each progressively more and more narrow. Now these bell bands have different modes. You can click on the text here where it says reject bell, and you can change the bell peaking filter into a bandpass filter. And it starts off quite narrow, but you can get even more narrow. Extremely narrow. And the same thing applies to the cuts. And you'll note here that the cuts in notch mode are quite a bit more narrow than in reject mode. Now another thing to note is that while you can change, of course, the bandwidth with this control right here, the 3 peak modes, you can also move this switch here. The slope above the high-pass filter will actually change the bandwidth for the first bell mode. Likewise, with the second band, you can change the slope above the low-pass filter, and that will affect the response of the bell. And note here with the boost, pretty much defaults at 6 decibels of boost. There's no gain knob here to change the amount of that. However, what you can do is mix in some dry signal, and that will reduce the effective amount of boost. And while we're on that topic, note that you can also delay the wet or the dry part of the processing. So if we delay that, of course, we'll get that characteristic comb filter effect. So this gets very cool for adding different tones. You can change the amount of delay, and then I'll change where the notches fall in the frequency spectrum. You can really exaggerate it, 50-50 being the most, or you can tone it down and just add a slight amount of the dry back in delayed with the wet delayed. And that'll give you just a little bit of character to the tone. Another thing you can do is flip the polarity, 180-degree phase reverse of either the wet or the dry. And if you check out the pink line here, you can see that although the frequency response is the same, the phase response has shifted considerably. Everything above has been put out of phase from what is below. And that is starting to be the makings of a phaser effect. We can blend in some of the dry, and we can sweep this around and get a bit of a phaser effect going on. So that's another very cool thing that you can do by inverting the wet or the dry part of the signal. Now the boosts here are 6 dB, however, the cuts are quite more considerable. In fact, we're going to have to increase the range on this just to get a scope, and that is minus 40 decibels and fairly narrow. Even the widest selector here is still fairly narrow. Let's go even more narrow. More narrow. You do lose a little bit. Now we're at like 35 dBs, but that is a considerable amount of cut, and it's extremely focused on a single, a very narrow frequency band. Pretty much focused on a single frequency. We'll move along to the high and low pass filters. Here's the high pass filter, which will engage. You can see by engaging it already, you're getting a significant amount of phase shift. And as we increase that up, we can see we've got a fairly standard high pass filter slope. If we change the slope to 12 dBs, you can see how much more gradual that is. And 18, which has an interesting characteristic where it's not completely linear here, smooth. There's a little kind of a dip there. If we increase the resonance, you can see that you can get tremendous resonance out of this. And that resonance is in part why you should be using the brick wall limiter. You don't want to be sending plus 36 dBs at 20 cycles into your poor monitors, or for the ultra high end either. It's all a significant boost, as we're going to hear. Likewise, low pass filter, same deal. Gradual slope, which can be made more gradual by going to 12. And 18 also gives you that kind of cool, not quite smooth curve there, very characteristic, so we can increase the resonance. Another cool feature about both the high and low pass filters is that you can pull back on the resonance. So you can actually make the slope more gradual. In the case of 12, you can make it very smooth. just by dialing back the resonance into the negative. Let's check out the harmonic distortion and drive characteristics of Siren. As you can see here with the defaulted and the drive turned all the way down, there is still a little bit of harmonics going on, first order and second order. The fun happens when we start to increase the drive knob. You can see those harmonics come up, gradually favoring the odd-ordered harmonics as you increase it. You can see the waveform starting to flatten out. Not hard clipping, soft, but it does get harder as you approach 100% drive. And this is quite a bit of distortion. However, if you want more, there's an overdrive button. And this takes things over the edge. You can see here the shape of the waveform is quite different here. The harmonic profile is also quite different. And you can bring this up to a severe level of distortion. So let's hear these filters in action. I've got a sawtooth wave synth patch, and sawtooths are great because they have all the harmonics and you can really hear the character of the filter. Here's the raw sound. And let's engage the low pass filter. I'll play around with it, give it some resonance. I may have to turn it down because remember the resonance is very extreme on this and it can add easily 10, 20, 30 dBs of gain. Let's crank up the resonance, give it some drive, see what we got here. Very nice. Let's put the envelope on and see if we can just leave this at a certain frequency, but have it sort of self-modulate just very slightly to give it a bit of life. Let's quickly check out the bell filter. and the high pass. Let's hear some distortion. We've got oversampling activated and it's in HD mode. We've got overdrive enabled. And while we're here, let's check out the King Tubby mode with the stepped frequencies. So let's go for a Mutron style auto wah effect. We're going to engage oversampling. I just put it in HD mode. Note here that the mu is selected, and let's hear what we have. So here we're going to use the filters in Siren to equalize a kick drum. Let's put it in bypass, hear the raw sound. On. And how we got here was just to add some resonance to both the high and the low pass filters and just tune it to here. Here it's at 47 hertz, fundamental of the drum. And up here it's about 5.1 kilohertz. Give it a little top end smack. Let's play with that a little bit so you can hear. So there's some real versatility in terms of the different tones that you can bring out. It's effectively adding a sine wave to the kick drum without the need for triggers or gates and that sort of thing. Over here in the midband, we set a notch filter at 350 hertz. Let's disable that. Enable. But it does clear out some box. And over here on the top end, we've added a little bit of 3.9 kilohertz. Let's hear that. And we have the low pass filter also adding some resonance to give it some top end smack. Let's play around with that. And finally, we've got some drive added. So in this example, we've got a snare drum. It's pretty cracky, high-end, wispy. Let's listen to it. And what we've configured Siren to do here is to add a low-end element. We've got some resonance on the low-pass filter. Let's enable that. A bit of envelope following. It's going to hear a focus low that sort of descends, almost like a Simmons drum. So more ways to get creative with drum sounds, especially with electronic sounds. You can really add elements to the drum to make it unique and make it interesting. Here we've got a vocal that we're just going to shred to bits. It's already a little bit aggressive. Let's hear the raw file.
Fucking with me, I'm the one that will be stopped!
And with the use of resonance and the envelopes, really give it some motion and a lot of drive too as well to distort it. Let's hear what we've got.
Fucking with me, I'm the one that will be stopped! Fucking with me, I'm the one that will be stopped! Fucking with me, I'm the one that will be stopped!
You can really exaggerate that resonance.
Fucking with me, I'm the one that will be stopped!
So for this example, we're going to add a little bit of interest and motion to an acoustic guitar track. It's just one mic on an acoustic. Here's the raw track. So what we've done here is we've enabled both of the bell filters and we've set them to an envelope here so that the frequencies move around a bit. We have inverted the polarity, flipped the phase of the wet signal. We have also mixed 50-50 wet-dry, and we've given the wet a 5 millisecond delay. This will have a phaser-like effect. Let's hear it. Another cool thing that I noticed about this plugin is that you can adjust this delay in real time and just kind of get a modulated coursing effect. It's actually quite smooth. So if you like, you can even automate this or set it to a modulation source and further extend the plugin just a little bit. Pretty cool. Hope maybe in a future version they'll have a way to modulate that or shift that around a little bit in real time, because that does add a completely new dimension of coursing to the plugin. So for this example, I've got two instances of Siren. One is on the left channel, one is on the right channel. We're in dual mono mode essentially, and this enables us to put slightly different parameters for each of the plugins left and right. So listen for the stereo effect here. So there you have it, the P565 Siren plugin from Pulsar Modular. I had a great time with this plugin. It was really fun, really creative. You can get crazy and wacky with it, or you can just use it to shape your tone. And the fact that it's all integrated with such high sound quality, I think makes this a winner. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. I hope this was entertaining. I hope you enjoyed. Hope you like, hope you subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Obsessive Audio.